Artificial intelligence, robotics, and other technological advancement has greatly influenced the way industries and sectors have operated in the past few years. VR and AR, on the other hand, are said to be connective tissue for AI, robotics, and technologies in the enterprise solution. Joining us today is a representative of ATHEER, a company doing so much in this space. Imagine the frontline work augmented. ATHEER is the frontline OS, a suite of AR and AI powered application to assist frontline team perform mission critical work.
Hi, my name is Geof Wheelwright. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications at ATHEER, and I want to tell you a little bit about how we see frontline teams and AR, and particularly the kind of lasting and impactful investments they're making for now and tomorrow, and particularly dealing with the challenges that we're all seeing today. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that although we've heard a lot over the last few months about the adoption and increased interest in across the board in XR, particularly for enterprise AR, the world didn't just discover the benefits of enterprise AR in 2020. What we've seen certainly recently has been really interesting, and we're going to talk about that. But I wanted to just kind of set the stage a little beforehand and say that even in a pre-COVID world, AR adoption was already well underway by this. But at the moment, it's still in a bit of a silo because I've got all these other enterprise systems and they're operating independently of what we're providing for our frontline teams and what we're providing for analytics. There's a real opportunity if you say, okay, well, actually, we can start connecting what we have for the frontline teams and allowing them to leverage data that we have around our ERP system, for example, or our warehouse management system, or bringing in learning management content so that we can do training using the platform. And what that looks like in practice is you're going to have an executive sponsor who's kind of going to help drive the buy-in more broadly across the company for this. You're going to have it connected to your broader enterprise IT ecosystem. You may have some sort of AR steering committee that'll provide input to the broader adoption of the technology across the organization. And now you're going to start to see, well, there's lots of use cases that people are suddenly seeing about, okay, this could be really useful for not only field service, but also preventive maintenance, for example. So how do we take all of these use cases and deploy them in some sort of a coordinated manner? And then you start looking at, okay, we're going to need to communicate this to everybody. People need to understand what we're doing, and we also need to help encourage adoption. We need to provide training materials. We need to make this simple and easy and help people understand the benefits of it. In the meantime, you're also beginning to refine your measurement and how you derive your and measure your business value. In terms of the strategies and the thinking behind it, you've gone from being, ad hoc to reactive to now you're proactive. Now you're really kind of saying, okay, I see the benefit here. I see why we need this. And we've got now a program to proactively drive this as part of a deliberate overall company-wide strategy. And there's some change management processes that you're putting in place. Because as soon as you have something that's going to be more broadly adopted, change management becomes even more important. You also now at this point see, okay, well, I've got a bunch of technologies that are going to be involved here. Once you start bringing in industrial IoT and perhaps you're starting to think about the enterprise network itself and the kind of infrastructure that you're going to need behind that, where your bandwidth is, et cetera. You need to have a good sense of that technology stack. You start working on integration. You have a plan for how you're going to make use of that industrial IoT data. And as you use the platform, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of data generated from it. And you're going to be able to want to have that data flow into your enterprise systems and back. And finally, you want all your processes, all your work processes integrated end to end across this. And content now becomes really important. So you start to have a real AR content strategy in place for the enterprise. You have definitions about your 3D and AR content, and people know how to create that, and there are processes for that. You start bringing in your suppliers and your customers and your OEMs into the system, so that if, for example, you've got a piece of equipment on a factory floor that urgently needs servicing, because otherwise you're going to experience serious downtime, the manufacturer of that equipment can be brought into a session, or can easily contribute content that you need in order to help people get back up online. And finally, you've got things like learning content through your LMS is integrated into it. And then you start looking at, okay, well, this is going to cost significant amounts of money, because you're making commitments across a broad range of areas. So you need at this point to have a budget across the enterprise, and you're going to get input to that from your lines of business and from the IT department. But fortunately, you've got your executive sponsor in place, so a lot of that is easier. And then finally, for IT, they're heavily involved at this point, and they're monitoring the uptime on this and making sure that you're getting everything that you need, and they're providing support for all of the enterprise integrations. And you actually have dedicated IT staff who is focused on the AR initiatives. So you finally get to the point where you're actually being able to have a strategic advantage from your platform. And you're seeing enterprise AR as a real competitive advantage. You're realizing the value of the work that you've undertaken so far in connecting and integrating all your platforms. And in terms of what's going on at this point, you're seeing all the people and processes are well on their way to being augmented. Everything that you've learned at this point from having optimized work instructions, optimized collaboration, allow you to really rethink your business processes. The platform is now available to your frontline teams and everybody that they work with. So the extended enterprise at this point, that would include your supply chain and your customers. You figured out, okay, well, what are the ROI drivers, and you're maximizing those. You may have a senior executive who's now in charge of this. It could even be something like a chief AR officer or a group of people in the C-suite who have a responsibility for this area. You could almost call your company at this point an augmented enterprise. The strategies that you're thinking about are now, okay, well, we actually can be predictive. So we've kind of gone from being ad hoc to being reactive to being proactive to now we actually can be predictive. So we've got a whole ton of data from the use of the platform across the organization for a while, and we can see where the challenges are and maybe can make some intelligent predictions about where we need to invest next. And that this supports a strategy of continuous improvement. The technologies you're using are the smart glasses, the devices, the sensors, all of the industrial IoT infrastructure, and all of the other supporting equipment. You may also, at this point, start having AR moving to the edge and leverage 5G infrastructure as it's rolled out. You'll have AR experiences that are predictive in nature, leveraging the AI and machine learning that you're drawing from throughout the course of this. and that you, in terms of the work instructions, those can become intelligent and self-adjusting based on everything that you've learned. The content at this point actually takes account of context. It knows about who you are, the kind of job that you're doing, where you're doing it, what resources are available to you, who's available to work with you, and can help use all of that information to get something that is really personalized to what you on the frontline team are actually doing. And you at this point also have a number of standards around how you're using AR in the organization that you can draw.
Very well. Thank you for that presentation. Now, want to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
How was your reaction or your response to the rise in the remote support required in the aviation sector following the COVID-19 effect on the economies?
What we've seen is that people need to understand what the technology can do and where their kind of entry point is. So what people, I think everybody understands, okay, well, for frontline teams, they are going to need remote support in ways and with greater urgency than they've ever had it before. But just thinking about that as, okay, well, maybe I just need to be able to make some video calls. Is really, that may be a kind of a starting point, but it's not really a scalable strategy. It's just kind of dealing with an urgent need. So what we've been trying to do for customers is to say, yes, absolutely, finding better ways to collaborate, leveraging video sessions in an industrial context certainly makes sense, but you can do so much more. So let's leverage the need that you have right now to allow you to take a broader look.